Hey, this is Vuin for the next episode of Oh My God, I actually think ELO Hell might be real. We've got Little here, and I was just joking. Now, he's a Face It level 7 slash Supreme player, and he's saying that he was tilting a little bit. As well, he's saying that he was told by a Face It level 10 player that his ability to clutch slash carry his team is an issue because he's mainly interested in IGLing slash supporting. Now, the first thing I want to point out here is something that I think is pretty important. Don't IGL in pugs. It's not a good idea. The most I'll do, and this is me as someone that has IGL'd my entire time playing the game on teams, I don't IGL in pugs. The most I'll do is a pistol round and maybe a little bit of guidance to the team. You know, if my team is going 5 middle all the time, I might say, can we play a 1-3-1? You know, can I go B? 3 of you guys go mid, 1 of you guys go A, something like that. You know, I'll set up the team for a default, but I won't really do much more than that except maybe like an eco play or something like that. I'd say I call maybe the pistol round and maybe one other round, you know, a game maximum. And oftentimes those are more suggestions than anything else. Like, hey, maybe we can do an A execute here. Maybe we can do this. Maybe we can do that. I think IGLing is a really bad idea because, especially when you look at pug players and lower level players, you see people that excel in a certain style. So when you take them out of that style, they really struggle and you're taking them out of their element. So they're going to do even worse. You know, if someone's a good lurker, you know, they're in your rank for a reason, right? So there's probably something they're good at and they're going to tend to be doing what they're good at more often than not, because that's what gives them the most success. However, someone, again, if they're a pretty good lurker and then you tell them to entry frag, you're going to be running into some issues and they're going to be playing to their weaknesses as well, because your players in pugs are so bad and because it's just a pug. When you try and call a strat like an execute or a rush or something, people are just going to not do it correctly, and that's going to end up causing extra issues. Typically, the best thing to do is just run a default and try and catch people. So starting off here with round number 1, and you know, typically I wouldn't be trying to go in on people's like the way they're playing or the timings and things in quite the same way as here. However, because of this exact situation where he's saying he's IGLing, I will go in on that a little bit because it's so bad in this game. So first off, the team is going fast middle, and he's rushing A. Now, rushing A as a fake makes a lot of sense if your team is going B. However, if you're splitting A, one of the things you don't want to do is make a lot of contact at A and then draw this rotate, and then, oh, would you look at that, we're going A, especially because these rotates are going to come in potentially to jungle, where, you know, one of the harder places to deal with, or they're going to come ticket, another hard place to deal with, right? You don't want to draw that attention. As well, you certainly don't want to be taking this type of duel and getting yourself killed, because as soon as they kill him here, now they don't have to worry about this direction, and they can play angles like back here, like default, you know, like even Palace, that would be vulnerable to this area that there, you know, is now no longer a relevant threat. And this player here, he's falling back away from the player's jungle, and he's going to get a decent engagement here, specifically because Little ran out A ramp and died. If he had just survived in A ramp, this player would not have picked up a second kill, and very likely they could have won the round here. Okay, so next up we've got round number 4, and it's going to be pretty much the opposite situation from a very similar strat. Little's going to be making his way over to Palace here. 4 players are going to be going quickly over the middle. This is obviously a strat. This is not something people just kind of accidentally start doing, so I'm just going to assume that Little was the one that called this. So the strat is whatever. Again, I would highly recommend against calling in pugs. However, what's going to happen is he's going to do the exact opposite. So last round he was far too aggressive. This round he's far too passive. I'm not really sure why he's so passive here holding this angle. His team is already in connector and they've got a kill. What's going to happen oftentimes when your teammates get a kill in connector, the A players are going to pivot and start looking that direction from wherever they are. That's option number 1. Option number 2 they might revert to is pushing up into Palace or ramp to try and clear that so they can turn around and catch the flank. This pushing through and then turning around thing is a little bit more of a high level play, I feel like. I very rarely see low rank matchmaking players do that because it takes a pretty quick reaction to realize they're in connector and already push through. However, regardless, you need to be playing, somewhat safe, but with the ability to get into their face. Somewhere like close palace here on an off angle in case he pushes would be fantastic. That way, if this guy makes contact from triple here, he's going to get shot in the side. However, instead, Little is hiding, and he's allowing his team to just take this straight up engagement. Now, of course, this doesn't go as poorly as it could have. However, part of what went wrong here is that his teammates were so preoccupied fighting a player into the bomb site that a player window managed to come up behind and grab a free kill. So certainly he was potentially at least a little bit culpable for both of the deaths that his team had there because he was not aggressive enough. Following that, his team has made so much noise for so long in middle that there should be some level of understanding that there could easily be a player ticket. Not only that, but there was already a player window, so getting a single kill on an A player when your team has elephanted around the map and just given up every bit of information possible, you can't assume there's only one player A. We're 30 seconds into the round. Your team has died to window, so obviously they could be coming from jungle. As in one of the previous ELO hells where they forgot palace exists, this is almost like forgetting jungle exists. And then, it's just unreasonable to think that they wouldn't have a guy rotated into connector. However, I will concede they stacked 5A in middle. Okay, so, it's a little bit odd. However, even if they had a B player, somebody should have rotated at this point. So just pulling your knife out and doing that, it just doesn't make any sense. And then running through the site, that's okay to kind of get caught by that. But you have to understand your role in these types of strats, and this is part of what makes IGLing and matchmaking or pugs so poor. It's because he doesn't understand his role here. As the single outskirt player, your role is to make sure that your team has the support they need to take the bomb site. That means that you need to be making sure that anyone in these areas, or really just all of A, can't simply fight your team and only worry about that angle. That means even if this player in sight that was, he initially killed, was making contact on people coming up connector, and he peeked out and shot at him and didn't get the kill, that would still be accomplishing his role as long as he didn't die, because he's then making that player that is where Mayman is now, if we remember back, he would have to then fall back to ticket, he would have to then go over and play a different angle because he knows he can get shot in the side. With that type of role, you don't actually really need to push up like that. It's much more important that he doesn't die, because now that he's dead, these players can focus on his team coming up through connector, and his team is walking straight into a crossfire with very little utility to work with. So next up, we're going to have another strat, and I've again said my opinion on IGLing, and I just want to cut one thing for a second here. I just want to just a small aside. People sometimes come into these videos and say, Vu, you're really biased. Okay, listen, the only bias I have is I prefer good play more than bad play. Okay, and if that's a bias, sure, but I'm proud of that bias. Okay, I'm happy that good play to me is put on a pedestal and bad play to me is like stomped. I hate it. Okay, I hate bad play. That's why I have a YouTube channel where I help people get better. Okay, and yes, I do occasionally make mistakes in my own games, okay? That doesn't mean it's not possible for me to, point out other people's mistakes. That's a comment that tilts me, too. Listen, all right, he's going to rush B, okay? He's going to rush B, okay? And the pathing here is an issue. Again, this is why IGLing doesn't make any sense, okay? This pathing is ridiculous, okay? So he's going to smoke off the molly, and then he's going to stop. And his whole team now, they're huddling together for warmth because they don't understand how entry pathing works. And he's going to get stopped again. He's trying to run forward. His whole team is trapped behind, and they're all going to get mowed down on balcony. This is why you don't IGL. And this, by the way, this is a Face It level 7 game, okay? This is much higher ranked than a lot of the people that are going to be watching this video. They were huddling together for warmth in B apartments, okay? What you need when you're entering B, you need the first couple of players to come out window more often than not. It's not always the case. You can go out balcony. It's just when you go out balcony, there's a lot of other issues. Either way, you need to be strafing off and getting out. What typically happens in matchmaking is nobody wants to be the first guy out the window that's going to die, right? Because that's not fun. Being dead is not good. And most people are biased. Being alive is preferred over being dead. So they don't like jumping out the window. And neither does the second player if the first player does, because he doesn't even think about it, doesn't realize it, he's not thinking, he doesn't understand entry pathing, where with entry pathing, one of the most important things is the first guy YOLOs out and the second guy is on his ass to trade. It's very important. People don't understand that. People don't stick to that. And then you have situations like this where everything devolves into pure, utter insanity. That's not supposed to happen. So I understand the clips for this one have been a little bit long. I've been going a bit more in depth, so I won't have too many more, but here's another one here. They're going to be going 5 middle. Again, this is probably something that was called by somebody, and I want to understand a concept. This goes for pugs. This goes for any level of IGLing. 5 people in an area typically is not a good idea, because if 4 people can't accomplish it, a 5th is unlikely to also accomplish it. It's not very common that you see 5 people go one direction unless you're running like something like a B rush where there's only one opening. Typically you're going, even in those rounds, oftentimes you're going to have somebody that's lurking or something, because a 5th player is just oftentimes unnecessary. And especially when you look at a place like middle, there's only so many angles you can get to. Once the smoke is down in window, once there's no smoke, you're not supposed to be sitting in the open in middle, because a flash can come over and someone can peek out window at any moment, or they can peek out cat, or they can peek out connector. And it's not happening probably often or at all in matchmaking. However, as a concept, it's important to understand these are danger areas, right? You can kind of slide by playing a little bit dangerous, a little bit suboptimal in matchmaking because you don't get punished for it. But if you ever play a good team, they're going to punish you for that. And so this is an area where 5 people can't even exist, right? Because there's 1 spot, 2, 3. Realistically, there's 3 angles you can be in if you don't have connector or ladder in middle. And so 2 players are just going to be sitting in the middle of the open, jerking themselves off, and they're just going to get destroyed. But that flash as well doesn't really do anything. Kind of landed behind his team once they were already out. His team's fighting cat, but he's looking the wrong direction. And then there's going to end up being, 3 people get blind by 1 flash, which is natural. They're all sitting in the middle of the open here looking at nothing. This is prime example of extra people not really accomplishing anything. They triple peaked connector. That's not really getting anything done. What it does is it makes you more likely to get mowed down by 1 player hitting a nice little spray down. Not necessary. Wouldn't recommend it. Okay, so I'm just going to let this round speak for itself. He's got Knot. He's going to go Palace. His team is rushing B. His team somehow takes B with 3 people. Yep. He gets a frag. So for the final round I'm going to take a look at round number 14 here. He's got a mid spawn. Just to pause for a second. Technically, there really is no mid spawn. There are CT spawns that can beat even the best T spawn. However, because people in matchmaking are so lazy, or, in any level of pug are so lazy, they don't get flashes when they have bad spawns. So you can sometimes exploit them, and it's going to work for you quite often. So I don't even recommend not doing it. However, one thing to keep in mind is you want to be a little bit forward here when you're opping these types of angles. You also don't want to peek this wide because, again, the player can beat you there. As well, if you're playing coordinated opponents, they're going to flash for their opper to peek, and if you're in the middle of the open here, you have no close cover. At least if you're kind of in the corner here, you can take a shot and quickly fall back. But the reason you want to be further forward is you want to create space behind you for your team to cross easily without having to run a marathon to get around you. This isn't we're not in the city streets here. We don't need to go around a roundabout to get out middle. They're just not going to. They're going to cross in front of you unless it's convenient to cross behind you. Typically, if you're these players in front, you either want to be jumping across the scope or crossing behind. Here, you'd be jumping across the scope. You usually have to be a little bit close just so you don't get in their way. But instead, because he's in such a ridiculous angle, they're going to strafe right in front. And not this round, but the following round, that becomes an issue. He misses a shot because he has to shoot through a teammate. Following that, again, 5 players middle, really completely unnecessary. If 4 players can't complete the task, 5 players are highly unlikely to get it done. And he's just going to be posted on these angles that his teammates are basically covering. Throwing a smoke into window here would be a really good idea so that he could post up on an angle like Cat, or he could come over here, post on an angle like this. Just, you need to be taking a lot of control very quickly if you are 5 players in an angle. And that's, another reason you don't want 5 players there, because you have 0 map control, and he's already died a couple of times to flanks when going 5 players middle in this type of situation. Now, he's going to stay middle for way too long, and his teammate is just going to win the round for him. So his teammate jumps into B, somehow manages to get a kill, and now Little is just going to be fully focused on the flank here. And look, it's okay to be focused on the flank. The flank is actually an angle you should be worried about. However, you want to focus on the flank from an angle that can actually support your team. A way to do it would be to jump and just check this as you're running by. Then you come over to here and maybe you post on the flank from here. And that way, if your teammate makes contact, you can pivot and shoot at him from window or cover from here or do something that doesn't require you coming from here to here. Because this is such a long distance, you can't even really reliably walk it. If your opponent kills your teammate and then fakes the bomb, you have to run it and give away your position. It just causes a lot of issues that you don't want to have happen. And instead of playing a 2v1, you're going to be playing 2 1v1s because for some reason, underpass is the most likely rotation place. It really isn't. Underpass is not the most likely place for a rotate to come in. His teammate made contact, he had to book it to get over there, and luckily for him, Blackbird gets the job done, wins the round for him. However, the problems here, playing quite a bit too passive, playing aggressive in situations he shouldn't, not playing out clutch situations well, and just IGLing really poorly, both in the way that you shouldn't be IGLing in pugs, and also just don't do it like this. So thanks for watching. I hope this helped. If you want an actual demo review and not just one for this series, you can go to my Patreon. If you want to try and submit a demo to potentially get into the ELO Hell series, there's a form in the description that you can fill out and you have a shot to maybe get chosen. Just convince me that you're in ELO Hell and I might give it a chance. Catch you next time.